What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Hardwood Convos podcast here on the 515 Podcast Network. My name is Brock Bierman, alongside, as always, Dawson Livingston and Hunter Rose here to give you around 45 minutes to an hour worth of NBA basketball talk here on the 515 Podcast Network. We appreciate everyone that tunes in and listens. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share with anyone that you think may enjoy this podcast. Feel free to leave comments. We'll take criticism, even though Hunter says he never says anything wrong about his takes in the NBA. But we're a week into the offseason. The NBA draft has occurred, which, I mean, we talked about how quick of a turnaround it is from the NBA Finals to the NBA draft. But there's also been some moves via trades, and also now free agency has started. So we are really in the thick of things already in the NBA offseason. First of all, Hunter, Dawson, how we feeling? And I guess Dawson first. Let's start with Dawson. Dawson, how are you feeling this week?
I'm feeling okay. Cavs made a couple moves that I like, a couple moves that I don't like, but I think overall, I'm pretty happy with the offseason so far.
We all know how I'm doing. I don't even need to say anything for anybody to just take a wild guess as to how I'm feeling on this fantastic Tuesday.
We're recording here on the 1st of July on a Tuesday. You guys are probably getting this on your feeds if you're watching this the day we release it on the 2nd. Or if you're watching this or listening to this during the 4th of July weekend, happy 4th of July. But Hunter obviously has some mixed emotions. I would first want to touch on probably the NBA draft just to kind of get it out of the way. Dawson and Hunter probably paid more attention than I did with the NBA draft. I was out of town pretty much basically from Wednesday until Sunday, so and not just that, but I also failed to check my phone and messages that I was getting throughout most of the week. I think I was able to message or respond to most of what you guys were sending throughout the week. So I am kind of out of the know in terms of what happened, or at least big things that happened in the NBA draft. Obviously, Cooper Flack is now a member of the Dallas Mavericks. Ace Bailey surprisingly gets drafted to Utah after pretty much declining to work out or even talk to any team in the NBA at one point. But Dawson and Hunter, any thoughts or any recaps that you want to give on this year's NBA draft?
I'll start it off so that way Hunter can give his opinion after mine to kind of build off. But the top 5 didn't really surprise me. I mean, obviously you have Flag going number 1, who's the consensus number 1 pick since September. Then you have Dylan Harper going to San Antonio, which is a great pick. Him and De'Aaron Fox in the backcourt's going to be really fun. Philly ends up going VJ Edgecombe, which is kind of the vibe we were all getting ever since about 3 weeks ago. Charlotte kind of kicks off the night with kind of a surprise pick with the Duke forward Con Knuppel, which would be him and LaMelo playing together would be fun. And then, like you said, Ace Bailey going 5 to Utah is kind of a surprise, especially since it sounds like he didn't want to go to Utah, but sounds like as of now he's okay with it or content with it. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the big storyline of tonight is what Hunter's New Orleans Pelicans ended up doing throughout this night. Their first pick, they go with Jeremiah Fears, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense just because just traded for Jordan Poole last week, just got rid of CJ McCollum. Kind of felt like their guard position was already set. But Jeremiah Fears is a really good shooter and could run the offense for New Orleans. But that's not really what I'm referring to, is them trading up for Derek Queen, which Queen's a good player, kind of redundant with skill set of him and Zion. But New Orleans ended up trading their unprotected first rounder with the new Atlanta Hawks. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I think New Orleans is going to be one of the worst teams in the league next year. And that pick also has swap rights with Milwaukee, so it can either be the worst of a Milwaukee pick or a Pelicans pick. And I just, for whatever reason, I think that could be the number one pick, which at this point could be AJ Devonsta, the BYU commit. But it's super head scratching what the Pelicans did on draft night.
Yeah, I think just to kind of go off of that, based off of what has happened to the Magic, Pelicans, and Bucks, I think I need to take one for the team and start cheering for the Celtics. Because clearly something happens when I start cheering for a team. But with the draft, yeah, like Dawes said, especially those first 5 picks weren't anything too crazy. Ace Bailey definitely going to Utah was interesting. But I mean, I know there's some drama during the draft and then a little for a couple days after the draft. But at the end of the day, he needed to be in Utah by Monday, and he was in Utah by Monday, so he will be a Utah Jazz. He'll be a part of the roster. I think one other thing that was interesting, Dawson mentioned to us before the podcast started, but especially based off of what has now happened in free agency, the Trailblazers going for a Chinese center was interesting. I believe is it Yang Hansen or Hansen Yang? It's one I always get it mixed up.
They mixed it up twice already. It was Hansen Yang, but now it's Yang Hansen. So.
Yeah. But him getting selected, one, was surprising because he even thought he was kind of hoping just to go at the end of the first round. Probably was maybe looking to be a second rounder for a lot of teams, and then ends up being basically a lottery pick. So, and then given with last year, the Trailblazers going for Donovan Clingan, but then having Time Lord Robert Williams and DeAndre Ayton on the roster, it was kind of a weird thing. And then they draft a center. And so everybody was like, what is going on? But now based off of how the beginning of free agency has gone, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, makes a little bit more sense as to why they probably would have taken the big man from China. But yeah, overall draft was interesting. It was interesting just to see a pretty hefty class come and go. And then, yeah, as Brock mentioned earlier, we are into free agency. So everything feels like really old news at this point. But yeah, I think there were just a handful of interesting things just with, Con Knuppel going. Charlotte has a bunch of guards now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the team. So I'm a little confused there. But yeah, I think, and then obviously 76ers, I think one of the other big stories was just VJ Edgecombe. A lot of people, big believer in him, but definitely just goes to show this dual timeline that the 76ers are on. So I'm curious as to what moves they could be doing before the season starts. And then obviously the season goes by the deadline, what happens in Philly.
I was telling someone earlier this week, or I guess yesterday, since today's Tuesday, that this offseason is what we thought every offseason was going to be during the 2014s, the 2019s, and they never ended up ever being as big. Obviously, you have the ones where LeBron goes back to Cleveland, Durant goes to Golden State, Kawhi goes to LA, like those moves. But do you remember like those free agencies where you had like Boogie Cousins, Westbrook, like all the guys, all the all-stars that were like kind of stuck on teams, and everybody's like, oh, this is the Blake Griffins. This is the year they're going to jump ship, go somewhere else. They're going to go to a title contender. They're going to build a super team. And then they never did. And eventually most of them either got traded, cut, or released anyways because their primes hit quickly. And I mean, their peaks hit quickly and their downfalls started immediately after. But I'm not saying that like all of these moves are like crazy in terms of building super teams, but there's been a lot of moves already in free agency, trades, even cutting players, which we'll get into, that I'm like, oh, wow, I did not see that coming whatsoever.
I think, especially after watching the finals, we've kind of seen the blueprint of what the NBA is now, and it's you have to have depth in these playoffs. Even like the Thunder, who it was pretty apparent by the end of the finals, they really only trusted 7 guys on their whole team. But like that depth will allow you to get through the regular season pretty unscathed. So it's not a whole lot of superstar moves anymore. It's a lot of like moves around the margins, if that makes sense. Signing players to like instead of $20 million deals to like $8 or $9 million deals. Those are the players that truly are like championship changing for some of these teams, which we've seen a lot of since free agency opened at what was it 5 o'clock last night or 5 o'clock on Sunday? It opened up. I think it was last night. But yeah, it's those kind of moves are going to be the reason why certain teams contend for titles and some teams don't. So.
I mean, yeah, let's kind of get into some of the bigger moves. I guess we might as well just address the elephant in the room with the Milwaukee Bucks and some of the moves that they have made recently within the last, not even 24 hours, the last 12 hours. First of all, Pat Connaughton is officially heading toward Charlotte, going to be a Hornet. Brook Lopez departs through free agency and signs with the Clippers. So Hunter finally gets his wish of Brook Lopez no longer being on his basketball team. Resigned Bobby Portis to a 3-year extension. Signed a couple other ones, Gary Trent, Taurean Prince, Kevin Porter Jr., to name a few. And then you make the additions of, I think Gary Harris signed a 2-year deal. And then you are able to convince Myles Turner to leave your rival in Indiana and come and be your star center for the Milwaukee Bucks. But what we didn't realize is that came with a catch. And one of those catches was that Damian Lillard is being waived by the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, everybody knows Damian Lillard is coming off of a Achilles injury. Will be out most of next year. I think I heard maybe a little bit after the All-Star break is at the earliest is when we could see him play. Who knows, depending on which team he may end up at or which team or roster picks him up. But Damian Lillard and the Milwaukee Bucks are no longer together, ending the short little run with Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And before we get Dawson's opinion, I feel like the one person that we really want to get their opinion on, obviously, as he's shaking his head, is Hunter, just because he knows his team better than anyone. And I feel like while I thought Myles Turner was a great signing, I didn't know that it was going to cost Damian Lillard's contract, which I think they owe $22.5 million to Damian Lillard for the next couple years, even though 5 years, even though he won't be on their basketball team. And this is the first time I think ever Damian Lillard's hit free agency. So he gets the opportunity to honestly pick. I don't know how much leverage in terms of star power he has anymore due to his age, but he might be one of the few players that kind of gets to pick where he wants to go no matter what. So Hunter, what are your thoughts? Are you happy with the signing of Myles Turner, Gary Harris?
No. I'm so sick of these Bucks fans. Like if we would have taken a flashback 3 years ago, okay, let's say we're in the free agency right after, it'd be right after Golden State at this point. 3 years. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Wins the chip. If it would have happened then, this would be great. Now that the caveat is Damian Lillard would still be on our basketball team, or he just would have never touched in the team, and I would have never tasted the greatness that is Mr. Lillard on the Milwaukee Bucks. But yeah, getting Gary Harris and Myles Turner on the squad, I'd be more than happy to do that. But here we are in the big 2025, and I just had to watch one of my favorite players of all time just get thrown off the team, because why not? Oh, and by the way, now we get to pay him $22 million and then bring in Myles Turner who, oh my gosh, for the low price of $23 million a year on the basketball team, he effectively is a $50 million center now. That's insane. Why would we do, like, I get we needed this, like, I feel like I could go on for a full episode, because if you would have asked me at like 9 a.m. about how I thought the Bucks offseason was, I would have said it's all right. Like, it's interesting to be, you know, running it back basically. But sure, man, why not? But then we get to now, and none of I'm so confused. I don't understand how, like, I get John Horst is trying to do his whole like, oh, Giannis, I'm willing to do, look at me, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make the team better. Well, you didn't make the team better, buddy. If this is you making the team better, we obviously need to look a different direction on who should be in charge, because you somehow made the team worse by doing like two things.
Dawson, you got any thoughts?
I'll get to the little moves before I talk about Dame. I am kind of curious the reasoning for running it back, essentially. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I get the Bucks logic of we still have Giannis. We're still going to be like at least 45 wins next year. But to waive Damian Lillard is baffling to me, especially when you're still going to have to pay him $22 million for 5 more years. It'd be one thing if like Dame had a year left on his contract or 2 years left on his contract, and you could make this make sense like for the future. But 5 more years, we're going to be in 2030 when his buyout is complete, which is crazy to say. We don't know what's going to happen by then. But my other point is they had to have ran this by Giannis before they did it, right? And Giannis had to have been okay with it, because there's no way they would have done it if Giannis would have been upset about it. I know the Chris Haynes tweet, I don't know if I completely buy that, but he had to have been at least okay with the idea of them cutting Lillard, right?
Yeah. There's a few really funny things about what happened today, just to amuse myself rather than crying. And one of those things is like the media response to this, because clearly nobody knows what's happening. Because yeah, you have Chris Haynes tweeted out that Giannis was reportedly unhappy, which in my opinion was probably to save face more than anything. There was literally another report from a different guy, like maybe 10 minutes before then, that was like, oh yeah, like this ran by Giannis. He was actually instrumental in getting Myles Turned to come to Milwaukee, so he was cool with it. And then you have the same thing with Dame, actually, where it's like Dame is elated and so much, like, honestly, if I'm Dame, like I'll be cheering for Damian Lillard wherever he goes. I hope he makes a great return. Please don't torch my team. But like I would be happy to make 22 million and then like kind of choose where to go from here. So yeah, I don't think anybody knows or understands anything.
Can I throw one? I know this is really far in the future because Dame's not going to play till like at least March or April. Can I throw one crazy Dame spot before we move on? What about Minnesota? Dame,
I have money.
and Julius Randle, Gobert, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels. Like, that's still a talented roster. And if you throw Dame, they haven't had a legit point guard in years.
You can't say Gobert and then say talented right after that. I'm sorry.
But the 4 guys I mentioned before Gobert.
Yes.
But Minnesota hasn't had consistent point guard play in a long time. Love Mike Conley, absolute vet, but he's getting to the point where he is just so old and he's just not as quick as he used to be. That he's not unplayable, but he has his moments where his lapses on the court. But I just threw that out there. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know what the odds are for Damian Lillard's next team, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about potential teams that could potentially sign Damian Lillard, I'm not going to lie, with how they have handled their offseason so far, I wouldn't be shocked if Houston starts trying to move some players around to see if they can find a way to get him on their roster because, yeah, you're not going to have him at the beginning of the year, but right now Houston is putting together, even though I didn't want to believe it after they traded for Durant, because I think out of all three of us, I was the one that was the least confident in Houston's future after Durant got traded, which, I mean, I'll own up to that. But if they find a way to get Damian Lillard and they got potentially a starting lineup of Lillard, Jabari Smith at the 4, Durant at the 3, insert probably Fred VanVleet at the 2, and then you can choose between Clint Capella and Steven Adams based off of whatever you want for their centers matchup. Obviously, Şengün, and that's the thing, is like I didn't even mention him. Like, holy crap, they're gonna go from a 2 seed that doesn't have any experience to a 2 seed or to a team in general that probably could compete with literally anyone at the highest level. Yeah. So that's one team that I wanted to throw out. I mean, obviously there's going to be rumors of, I think I saw Golden State's on there just because of his ties with Oakland and everything. It doesn't seem like a fit. I know that's just because of where he's from. Who knows if the Lakers will probably reach out, or, Laker fans probably already assume that they have Damian Lillard jerseys being made as we speak. But Hunter, is there anyone that, like, I know you probably don't want to even talk about it, but like, is there one that you could see that is a good fit for Damian Lillard, even though I know it means that he's no longer playing in Milwaukee?
Yeah, I mean, fit wise, I think Houston's probably the biggest one, just with it would alleviate some of the half court. Obviously, they added KD, but it would alleviate a little bit more of the half court offense. Heck, I don't know why he'd want to go there besides just saying that he could play there finally, but he could go to Miami because he supposedly wanted to go to Miami before, even though I don't see much of a future. Those are probably the two. I think the biggest teams, have been kind of all ones we mentioned with the Lakers. A reunion in Portland potentially, that would confuse me. That would basically be him saying, like, I'm not going to be able to return really after this injury. Like, he'd just be coming back to essentially retire there, would be my guess. But yeah, Minnesota is an interesting one. I think, just with being able to, one, help out more with that half-court offense, because as we kind of saw, like, I mean, if Julius Randle is not feeling it, like, everything is on Ant to do absolutely everything. And so that would do a little bit to spread the floor more. They have the defense to kind of help out with any lapses potentially there. And then, obviously the Warriors was a one. That would just be a Chris Paul situation again. So I don't know how much I buy that, but
yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. Obviously, Lillard's not going to be there to start the season whatsoever, let alone being there for most of the regular season for whatever team signs him. So maybe he even plays it out for the long haul because, he is getting paid no matter what, to where he can wait until January if he wants to, and then maybe pick and choose which team he wants based off of how well they're doing and if they would benefit from a player like Damian Lillard. Obviously, there's been some more moves because, it's not Milwaukee's not the only one making moves in this offseason so far. You've got teams like Cleveland, which, I mean, we might as well hit that one. Dawson, your Cavaliers got a great player in Lonzo Ball, who hasn't played a lot of games, though, in the last couple years. So you're kind of playing with, hand grenades right now. And almost is really pretty much half a season for me of playing half a season for Lonzo Ball is a success at this point. And so what are your thoughts on Lonzo becoming a Cavalier? And also, how do you feel about, Okoro being a part of that trade and then Ty Jerome also moving on to Memphis?
I was pretty happy with the Lonzo trade because I think Lonzo could be a guy that could be in the rotation of a playoff series. And Isaac Okoro just is not. The Cavs have tried to keep him in the rotation the last 3 playoff series, but he just ends up fizzling out. Just can't really rely on him as a scorer. And he's a good defender, but his scoring makes him almost unplayable. I was super upset about Ty Jerome leaving. I'm not gonna lie. That still makes me mad, especially when the Cavs just signed Sam Merrill, Bucks legend, to a 4-year, $39 million deal when they could have given that same deal to Jerome. And it sounds like, I don't know the validity of this, but it sounds like he wasn't even offered to come back to Cleveland. So, as a Cavs fan, that makes me super confused because he was a runner for the 6th man of the year. Like, I don't know, but I'm pretty happy because with the Cavs offseason, they just signed Larry Nance Jr. like an hour or 2 ago. Who's going to give him some spacing off the bench? But
the return,
yes, bring all the former Cavaliers back, especially the one that's in LA right now. But no, I'm pretty happy with the Cavs so far.
Yeah, I feel like this is a great opportunity for a lot of Eastern Conference teams to be able to take some risks on building certain rosters that they think may work, just because there is such an open area at the top right now in terms of what the Eastern Conference is going to look like next year. Boston having injury issues, Indiana, Tyrese is out next year. Milwaukee, we'll see what the roster ends up looking like. Chicago never does anything, so you don't have to ever worry about them. Magic's been making some moves to try to move up. Atlanta's been stuck for a while. So, like, really, these small little moves from certain teams, especially Cleveland, who was the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference last year, could help them for sure in the long run. And trust me, I am probably the biggest Lonzo Ball guy that you'll find who has never had him on his team. When he's healthy, he's one of the more entertaining point guards that you can see in the NBA. And man, I would kill to see Lonzo Ball be at 100%, even if that means Cleveland being successful at basketball.
Yes, sir. But no, his health is it's going to be the biggest question for him. And it sounds like he'll have to start at least the first few weeks of the season because Garland's not going to be back until at least November, December. So that'll be kind of like his opportunity to show out before Darius Garland ends up coming back. So,
and who knows, maybe he could find a way to potentially take Garland's spot in terms of the starting rotation. Because, I mean, I'd take what Lonzo Ball was doing before he really got hurt I would take that version of Lonzo Ball over Garland easily. That's just my personal opinion. But
I think I don't know if you would take it over by any means. I do like the fit with him and D-Mitch though, just especially with D-Mitch being a little bit more undersized. Teams won't be able to get that downhill as easily, like especially bigger guards when going up against somebody like Lonzo. I'm sure Dawson has more opinions on if he would get into the starting rotation at all, but I do like the fit a lot. Yeah, I like the fit a lot.
It gives Cleveland another defender. They need to sign a center. That's another whole topic. But yeah, I like Cleveland's offseason so far. It's not my favorite out of other teams, but it's got to be.
I mean, you guys can't really do much in terms of
we're second apron. Yeah, we're second apron, so we can't even trade for a certain fella in LA. So.
No. So getting Lonzo is great. And I mean, I'm not saying that he should start or anything. I do think the best thing about this move, though, for Lonzo specifically, is he won't have to play as much, even if he does find a way to work into that starting role more consistently, because you got Garland and others on the bench that could be that supporting cast. Or even Mitchell's not that bad of a ball handler. He's not the guy that you probably want to distribute the ball as much. Compared to Lonzo or others on the roster, but he's not terrible. So it gives Lonzo that opportunity to be who he wants to be in terms of his play style, but also not have to worry about playing 32 plus minutes a game and potentially getting injured. One of the moves involving another point guard that really confused me, and I want your guys' opinions on this. What is Dallas doing with getting D'Angelo Russell? A 2-year deal. According to ESPN, D'Angelo Russell signs with Dallas right after Kyrie Irving agrees to a 3-year extension with the Mavericks. Dallas just got Cooper Flagg with the first overall pick. I mean, I've seen some rumblings about LeBron being interested in going to Dallas. That won't happen because LA is going to want too much in return for that to even be possible, let alone I don't see a world where LA and Dallas would ever do another big time trade like that. So now you got Kyrie, who is coming off of an injury as well. D'Angelo Russell, who, man, he's got to be one of the most hit or miss guys like that we've seen in recent memory. AD's always hurt. Cooper Flagg's a young rookie with a lot of potential and a lot of hype around it, and Clay. So what are your thoughts on this move of getting D'Angelo Russell for the Dallas Mavericks?
I mean, it's cool. I mean, I kind of like the fit until Irving gets back, but it's when Irving gets back, because when Russell goes to the bench, I don't know how that's all going to go.
Do you think Dallas might be setting this up for a potential trade package when Kyrie comes back?
It almost feels like that, where it's like, hey, we're going to have D'Lo start at the 1 for us until like February. See if we can increase his value. And if we can turn that into another rotation piece for the playoffs when Kyrie comes back. But if this team was in 2019 and you have all-star D'Lo, all-star Clay, all-star Kyrie, all-star AD, like this team would be unreal.
Cooper Flagg? Oh,
and, yeah, but it's like a 6 out of 10 move for me. It's cool. It's something. It's a move. But any Mavericks fans saying that this is like a game changer, they're just crazy.
Hunter, do you think Dallas is going to be in any way, shape, or form a contender this year?
I don't know about this year. I think I'm not saying he won't be good by any means. I'm really and like there's no way they could have passed on him, right? With Cooper Flagg. I am really curious what this year will look like, because in former years with first overall picks, like, it's not like they average like 25 a game right off rip, right?
We just say average like 12 or 13, but it usually, at least the last 10, 15 years, number one picks, if they're not Anthony Bennett, average like 16, 5 and 5.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
don't be hating on my boy Anthony Bennett.
Like the first like absolutely game changing leader of the team from day one, like, well, leader in at least in offensive capabilities in general that I can think of is like Blake Griffin. I think he averaged like 23 or 22 or something, probably his rookie year, somewhere in there. But like they come in and it's like they are the future, right? And that's true with Cooper Flagg. Obviously, that's what everyone's been saying. But he's on a team with 2 future Hall of Famers, like right off the bat. And it's not like, obviously they're coming back from an injury and are injury prone at times. But by all means, I would say it's probably still their team. So I'm really interested what he will look like this year. And so I think they'll compete. I think they'll be a team that's not a pushover by any means, especially like, heck, if you get Clay into a shooting rhythm. Honestly, the thing with D'Lo, I think if he figures out his role on this team is probably the biggest thing, because he all of a sudden is not even the 4th, probably not even like the 5th option on this team. And so he just has to be a catch and shoot guy who can bring the ball up and get some playmaking in, which is really weird to say for a guy who just had a supermax not that long ago. So it'll be, I think if just in general, if everybody on this team is able to actually figure out what their role is just for this year, and that includes even Cooper Flagg, I think they could be really dangerous. I don't think that's going to happen though. I think it's going to be a really weird season for them, but they'll still be good. So
yeah, it's just kind of weird. Like Dawson mentioned, this team on paper, like just names
loaded.
Just like you're like, if you would, like Dawson said, you had said something about this in 2019 that this would be a roster, you'd be like, who was able to pull off this, and how did Dallas manage to put this roster together? Little did we know that would take Luka Doncic getting traded to LA, but
this just feels like a team you'd make on 2K.
Seriously.
Like, let's just sign and trade for a bunch of guys that score points.
It's so crazy.
It's weird. I don't know.
But I agree. It's weird. This team is weird from the standpoint of I don't know how to project where this team is going to go or where this peak of this current roster is. Because, yeah, you got Cooper Flack, who I hope becomes the all-star that everybody's envisioning. Because I do think the NBA is in search of that next face of the league. I know Wemby is probably the front runner once he hits that prime part of his career, once he starts winning games, winning awards, potentially winning championships. Flag is another guy that I feel like could take that reign of being the face of the league. But the problem is I don't know where this team is going to be in 3 years. Is Kyrie's going to be even older? Klay Thompson has already shown that he's kind of past his prime. AD, am I crazy to say who knows if AD can make it another 3 years because of his injury issues? So while I think that this team the ceiling is really high for how this team could do, I don't know how long that door is open for them, or that window, I guess.
Kyrie's going to be 34 by the time he comes back. Klay Thompson's 35 right now. AD, I think, is going to be, 33? Which is crazy to think about. He's going to
Which just furthers my point of that. Like, who knows if he'll play
30, he's
3 more
32
years.
right now. So.
Yeah, it's kind of outside. I mean, I wouldn't say they're as probably cursed as the 76ers of a dual timeline, but it's like, you give Cooper Flag, we'll say like 5 years, 6 years probably, till we really start seeing, unless he just is off rip, but until we start seeing maybe MVP form potentially, and still that's who knows, right?
Yeah.
On this roster, it's what you could probably, Derek Lively, Max Christie. I don't know where Jaden Hardy's going to be with this roster. I guess he could maybe be the next starting one, but he's just a really interesting player. And then outside of that, PJ Washington will be in his 30s, so he could still contribute. Same with Daniel Gafford. But again, if Derek Lively is the guy, who knows where Daniel Gafford would want to be. It's they'll have to retool a little bit here, because a lot of their roster and a lot of the key pieces specifically on their roster are going to be gone. And so it'll be very future hold, but at the same time, with where they're at now, it's well, what do you do to build yourself up to that then?
Yeah. Well, we'll see what they do. The Mavericks are the weirdest. They've had the weirdest year out of all the teams in the NBA, and maybe Nico will prove everybody wrong, and somehow this will turn out right. And I know you guys are shaking your heads, and I am in the same boat as you guys, but
that guy makes me so mad.
The fact that he still has his job is mind-blowing to me.
All I will say is NBA fans better hope, including, honestly, Mavericks fans, better hope they never win a championship when he's working for them, because he will never let anyone hear the end of that. And rightfully so.
That's the thing. He literally said, somebody asked him about where they're at and everything. And he said, fortune favors the bold. It is not bold to trade Luka Doncic. It's stupid. It's so dumb. You had a 1.8% chance of getting the next generational talent. That's not bold. That's stupid.
And you helped the franchise that no one wants to ever help.
He's like that one friend that has one 20-leg parlay that hits, and all of a sudden he's the greatest gambler of all time. How dare you?
That's honestly well put right there, because everybody knows that one person.
Speaking of the Luka trade, I think we're already at the 5-month anniversary of that trade. It happened February 1st, if I'm not mistaken. So
Lakers still haven't won a title since then, so I'm happy.
True.
But who knows what their roster is going to look like? I think they haven't really made a ton of moves so far.
They've just signed D'Lo. That is it. So
wait, Oh, I was talking about the Lakers. Sorry.
Oh, Lakers. Yeah, we can talk about that.
I was like, wait, did D'Lo just did
Do the
they just
flip-flop?
announce something? Yeah, I was like, ain't no way.
No, dude, the Lakers one is even crazier.
Yeah, Lakers are a mess right now. And, okay, you guys need to fill me in. So I don't have Twitter anymore, so I don't get all these reports. Which is a good thing because that means I don't get centelled ever. But it also means I have no idea what's going on. Is LeBron actually like trying to leave the Lakers this year? Or do you guys think that's just him trying to get leverage right now and trying to force them to make moves?
I'm going to preface this by saying I am a huge LeBron James fan. That is well known by anyone that knows me. It feels like LeBron right now just wants to opt in to his contract and just say crap about the Lakers and then doesn't want to do anything about it. Like, if he really wanted to move on, he could have opted out and worked a sign and trade. It would not have been that hard to get to the place he wants to go. Whether that is Cleveland, whether that is Dallas, any of these teams, New York for that matter. It just feels like he just, again, wants to hold this franchise hostage. And again, I never say too many bad things about LeBron, and I hate doing it. But it's kind of a bad look for him, in my opinion. Being able to just like hold this Lakers team hostage. They can't really get much better because him and Luka are taking $100 million of the cap of the $153 million. But no, I think if he actually wanted to get moved, I think it would have already happened by now. So I think he's at least staying in LA for this year. Next offseason, we'll see. But I don't think he's going anywhere this year.
I did put it out in the universe last week during our last episode that next year would be his last year in LA. So we'll see if that actually ends up becoming true. Hunter, do you see any world where LeBron is not on the Lakers come week one?
I don't know about come week one. Like, I agree with Dawson. It's like there's nothing wrong as the leader of a team to ask your front office to like do stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially with like the way the Lakers have been the past few years, and just with probably the relationship that LeBron has at this point, being there as long as he has, I have no problem with LeBron. If LeBron were to just basically make a statement and just say, I want to win. To opt into a $50 million deal for 1 year and then say, make moves to get better is crazy to me as like a 41-year-old man. That is nuts.
He has
like,
all the accolades that you could ever want as an NBA player.
It almost makes me think that he only opted in to keep that no trade clause. So the Lakers just can't trade him out of the blue. Because he still has that with this current contract that he signed either last summer or the summer before, where he can veto any trade. Him and Brad Beal are the only players in the league that can veto any trade they want.
You'll never see another contract like that ever again.
No, but
because of Brad Beal, not because of LeBron, because of Brad Beal. He is the reason why that no trade clause are no longer going to be a thing.
Shout out Brad Beal.
I'd like to propose the idea that the reason that he's opted into it is to keep his son's job.
I don't know if I'd go there. I just don't think he wanted to get traded mid-season.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Bronny's a G League demon. Like he'll be in the G League for a few years at the very, if not anything.
I can't wait for Bryce to come to Hilton this winter. I get.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Arizona.
But we'll see what they end up doing. Hey, I was, we can touch a little bit on some other teams, but I would like to obviously give my 2 cents on some of the moves that my Celtics have made. The season of tanking has begun. For those that haven't seen anything that Boston has been doing, Jrue Holiday has been traded to Portland. Fortunately, Boston was able to get Anthony Simons in return for that trade. I actually love that deal, and I think in the long run could benefit Boston in terms of a young talent for an older vet in that trade. Luke Cornett, the best defender against three-pointers, unfortunately, is going to San Antonio. And then Porziņģis also is going to Atlanta, part of a 3-team deal. And in return, though, Boston gets one of my favorite players of all time, not just NBA, but college as well. George Niang will be playing for his home state, hometown, depending on what you consider his hometown of the Celtics, which is hilarious because I also had a coworker come up to me that was like, "What are your thoughts on this?" Because Niang has been terrible to our players and all that in the past. He's grabbed Jaylen Brown after he shot a 3 while sitting on the bench. All this, I'm like, dude, I'm an Iowa State fan. I will, if Niang wants to play for my teams, I'm never going to complain whatsoever. If he's on the roster at the beginning of the year, I'm going to buy a George Niang Celtics jersey. Last NBA jersey, by the way, that I bought was an Indiana Pacers rookie year George Niang jersey. So like to give you an idea of how hyped I am about that. And then I get word that Boston signs a center to basically replace Porziņģis, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's see who it is. Boston signed this man,
National Player of the Year, Luka Garza,
is less entertaining than watching paint dry.
Okay.
Luka Garza is going to be playing for my Celtics next year, and you're telling me that I have to enjoy watching Boston Celtics basketball next year with Luka Garza on my roster?
Yep.
Heck no. And, being that he played for Iowa, I see all these local media people post about this, and all the comments are like, oh, good for him. He'll finally have an opportunity to prove how good he is. All his hard work is going to pay off, blah, blah, blah. My favorite part is half the people making this comment probably didn't watch a single second of NBA basketball last year, because no one in this state outside of like 4 people, Dawson and myself being 2 of them, watched the NBA religiously. Maybe, just maybe, Luka Garza is not that good. You can be a hard worker.
No.
Doesn't mean you're good at basketball. It's okay. I mean, you could be a National Player of the Year 2 seed for the University of Iowa, who's in the second round of Dana Altman and the Oregon Ducks.
True.
Doesn't mean you're going to be a good pro. So
I hope he averages 15 a game for Boston.
Oh, I will eat if he is like a most improved. If he finishes in the top 5 for most improved player next year, I will buy myself a Luka Garza jersey.
Who finishes with better stats?
Ooh.
Niang or Garza.
I think Niang, because Niang is going to get the sheer volume of, he's going to shoot 9 3-pointers a game, because Joe is just going to let everyone shoot threes next year, because I just don't think that Boston's going to be very good.
See, I'm trying to think, because I think just because of the depth, I don't think Boston has really anyone at center for next year, dude.
Don't you still have who is it? Is it Kada?
No, Xavier Tillman and
Kada?
Kada are not going to be starters for Boston, dude. I actually would not be shocked if Luka does start for Boston. No, he's going to get cooked.
Well, yeah, his defense was never a strong suit.
He is slow as molasses. I think I could almost keep up with Luka Garza in a race.
Whoa, okay. Now you're just being a hater.
So Brock, usually you ask us questions. So I guess we'll do some asking here. So unrelated to either 2 of those players.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, like as I think about some of the ways in which the NBA and the way GMs and owners view the second apron as like literal hell. There's 3 people left then that have big contracts. Jason Tatum, who's not getting traded.
Nope.
And then you have Jaylen Brown and Derek White.
One of those 2 is not getting traded either.
Who would you say is more likely to be gone, if either of them?
I will go on record saying I don't think either Jaylen Brown nor Derek White will probably get traded this year. I would state this year only, not necessarily ever. I have read that they are basically hanging up the phone anytime someone asks for Derek White. So I personally, everybody knows that for me, anyone that knows me personally knows that really my favorite players on the Celtics, even during their title run, weren't Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. It was Al Horford. It was just because of their personalities, not necessarily because of their star power. It was Al Horford, Porziņģis. Porziņģis might be one of my favorite players all time, just in terms of just not just his Celtics career, just in general. But anyone that knows me knows that I love Derek White. So I will never give up Derek White. Even if that means he falls off the face of the earth and becomes average or really bad at some point, I will always be a Derek White supporter. So if I had to pick one of the two, I personally think that you could get more in return right now for Jaylen Brown, just because the only downside, though, is someone going to be willing to pay that price, because you are trading away the second biggest contract, right? Because I think someone just I don't remember who it was, but someone already beat his record for, was it Jason Tatum? I actually want to be shocked. Yeah, it was Jason Tatum. Okay.
And then I think Shea just is.
Shea shattered it.
Shea is going to shatter it.
He just signed 4 for what? 280?
We have entered the NFL quarterback market of just like every time a star player signs that next contract, it's going to reset the market type of thing. But dude, I think the Celtics are tanking this year. I don't think they're hiding it really either. This is my mindset. I don't think they're like hiding it. Tanking is a hard word. I think they're selling right now.
Retooling.
Yeah, they're retooling. Because you look at these deals that they've signed, some of these players, they're like 2-year deals. So I think they're using this year as okay, prove yourself. And if you're worth keeping on this team, you're going to be on this roster next year, the following season. So not 2025, 2026, 2026, 2027 season is when they would be a key part of this team. Or we will try to package you for multiple second-round picks or something like that, what Brad loves to do anyways. So, or maybe Luka Garza or even Niang, they prove themselves to actually be legitimate, decent players for a roster, and then he still trades them away for even a bigger star or something like that, because that's just something Stevens is doing. I think he's doing a lot more investing in terms of like trying to buy and sell within the next year. I wouldn't mind if they actually did fall in terms of being a top pick in the lottery. I don't think they will, because the East is a mess. Because I would love to see a potential Cameron Boozer draft pick to Boston, just because I think Boston is looking for that next stretch for potential big man for the future, because Jason Tatum's obviously going to be there. And heck, if everything goes well for the Celtics next year, and including the offseason for me, it's a big stretch. It's a big stretch, but hypothetical Damian Lillard potentially sees it's a legit thing. Jaylen Brown gets traded for maybe another aging star of some sort. If Damian Lillard wants to play for Boston, Derek White would probably also be traded as well. So it'd be like Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, and Jason Tatum at the 2 and 3, depending on the situation. Maybe the 3 and 4, and maybe a young Cameron Boozer or someone else potentially. Obviously, all of this would have to go the right way. But Hunter, to get back to your question, I would rather take Derek White on my roster as a Celtics fan over Jaylen Brown, just because, I don't know, Jaylen Brown sometimes goes really, really cold. And I know Derek White can get cold, but I'd take a cold Derek White night than a Jaylen Brown, because Derek White can be cold and Boston can still win. Jaylen Brown, if he's really, really bad, the team really has to pick up. And I guess that does show how important Jaylen Brown's been to that roster, but also emphasize how bad he can be, because he can look like an all-star. He deserves that contract, but he can also look like, man, I remember seeing his like draft analysis that he can't shoot a 3 to save his life. And there are games where it looks like he can't shoot a 3 to save his life. I saw your reaction, Dawson, to my Damian Lillard thing. I'm not trying to be that Celtics fan. I'm just saying that the like if everything would work out.
Right.
In
No,
my,
I understand what you're saying.
but yeah, what were
I'd
your
also
thoughts?
agree with I agree with you. They would trade Jaylen Brown in a heartbeat because his value is way higher.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't need to talk about it too much more because you pretty much hammered all the points. But
I think I could see Boston making a lot of big moves around the trade deadline this year, depending on where they're at, injury wise, roster wise, and standings wise as well. So we'll see. Hunter, who would you trade if you were Boston if you had to pick between Derek White and Jaylen Brown?
Probably Jaylen Brown because I think Derek White I was still shocked when Derek White just turned into an all-star.
right.
What every indication in NBA history would show at some point he will start regressing a little bit sooner than Jaylen Brown would. So
Yep.
it's going to be harder to get teams to unless you get a team that's like win now mode and they would not want the Jaylen Brown contract. That's like that would be somebody coming up to Boston and asking about it rather than Boston being like this guy's on the trade market versus this guy's on the trade market. If that's the case, I would say Jaylen Brown's probably being shipped off.
That's where. Oh, go ahead, Dawson.
You know what it kind of feels like for me? It kind of feels like if Houston has a bad year, like if they get bounced in round one and they just don't look like a very good team. Is there a Houston trade with Jaylen Brown where it's like Amen Thompson comes back, maybe a couple salary fillers, like a Steven Adams and some picks? Because Houston still has a bunch of talent on that roster. And Boston can kind of just build around Amen Thompson, who's a lockdown defender and could be their point guard of the future. Then you have Tatum coming back. Like, you basically have point guard through small forward set. You just got to worry about your bigs. But it kind of feels like a Houston trade. And I know they just made the move for Durant, but they still have assets to make another move for a Jaylen Brown or some unnamed superstar that hasn't been available yet.
Don't be shocked if an Eastern Conference team doesn't call for not Jaylen Brown, but for Derek White, because like Hunter said, one of those like Eastern teams that are like, we are one piece away from being the Eastern Conference team to beat.
Kind of feels like a Detroit trade for Derek White. I don't know. Detroit's got some assets.
You're not wrong. So before we get going, because I think we have a couple minutes left, any other teams or any other moves that you guys want to quickly mention before we sign off here?
The Denver Nuggets have won the offseason so far. I have loved, and Hunter's going to hate this, but I have loved what the moves they've made. They re-signed Bruce Brown, who was an awesome player for them 2 years ago to win the title. They get rid of Michael Porter Jr. He's gone. And they bring in a guy who has similar stats, but is $18 million a year cheaper. They just signed Tim Hardaway, who's going to be a knockdown shooter for him. And they just got a backup for Jokic and Valanciunas. I like their moves a lot so far. And I know Hunter just gave me a look, so I'm kind of curious what he's got to say about that.
I'm on the same boat as Hunter. I don't know what he's about to say, but yes.
Why can't John Horst be the GM of the Nuggets, man? Like, I thought if I could hold on to one thing, it'd be the Denver Nuggets getting worse.
No, dude.
And no, instead they actually have somebody with a brain and decided, let's actually make this team better.
Yeah.
It makes me so. That was my look was a look of, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Man, we still got a lot of things that we could probably touch on, but that'll probably pretty much do it for this week. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on the Suns roster at some point, just because of how big of a mess it is. But man, I know we used to make fun of the Wizards, but this roster, it's the Bradley Beal effect. The Bradley Beal effect needs to be studied on how teams are just fall apart with his presence. But that'll do it for this week. We'll be back next week to talk some more NBA hoops. Hopefully there's some more offseason moves that we can potentially talk about. Maybe some trades, maybe some, I don't know, just other random stuff. Maybe LeBron cries a little more. Who knows? But we'll be back next week. Also, with this being in the offseason, we might try to record a couple more episodes per week, or just we'll do a bulk record one night of just random things. I do want to get your guys' thoughts on the Orlando Magic rebrand. And then also we had our one conversation that we wrote down about, teams that are kind of stuck. We're looking at you, Chicago. And if there's any ways to fix it, other things that we, I think, written down were like, if we were GMs, what were the first 3 or 5 moves that we'd make? So we're going to have some fun this offseason with just some little short, maybe 15, 20-minute conversations about whatever we want alongside your usual hour episode of everything else in the NBA that actually matters. So for Hunter Rose and For Hunter Rose and Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Bierman. We are the Hardwood Convos crew here on the 515 Sports. No, 515. Man, I cannot talk today. For Hunter Rose and Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Bierman here on the Hardwood Convos podcast here on the 515 Podcast Network. We'll be back next week to talk some more NBA hoops. Enjoy the 4th of July, everybody, and we'll see you next week.